Hey again everyone, and welcome back to the channel for another figure showcase special. And like I've mentioned before, these are going to be kind of one-off videos that I'll do to either showcase multiple versions of the same character in figure form, usually tied to a new release, or even to showcase a full set of figures from a line. And I'll do that when I basically conclude the figures that I'm going to be picking up from a specific IP. So for this video, we'll be taking a look at my set of Star Trek Voyager figures by EXO-6. And before kicking things off, just want to give a shout out to a friend and channel member who suggested these videos as well. DS9 Mega Fan, this one's definitely for you. And I know off the bat, these EXO-6 figures aren't for everyone. Star Trek, as much as I would love to say otherwise, is very much a niche line that appeals to a much smaller fan base than, say, Star Wars or Marvel. But I personally love the IP, and having these characters in 6-scale form is a win for me. Because honestly, I very much doubt that we'll ever see these again, or at least not the secondary characters. So as you can see all the figures standing here, this is my version of the Voyager command crew, and it's how I'm wrapping up the set. I didn't get the Doctor. First of all, I missed out on him, and now he's going for ridiculous prices, so I'm not doing any back collecting on this line. And look, I like some of the Doctor stories, but I feel like the show leaned so heavily on him that it detracted from some of the other characters. And this is again just my personal opinion on Voyager, but I think they focused too much on him, and frankly, he was kind of annoying at times. There were great moments with him, no doubt. Like, I can't help but laugh at the command version of his programming, but overall I just feel like they overused him. So no need for me personally to get him. And then Neelix. EXO-6 has shown him at conventions, and they've also teased that he will be going up for pre-order soon. For me, Neelix wasn't terrible. I think his best episode was when he got turned into Tuvix, but beyond that, I usually found him irritating, so I definitely share Tuvok's feelings towards him. Look, I thought his final episode, where he disembarks Voyager to stay back, was touching, so I'm not a total monster, but again, his stories, I just never connected with them. So he's one I'm passing on as well, which is why what you see here is my final version of the command crew for the Starship Voyager. Now, EXO-6 and Nanjin, their CEO, have teased other figures, including Species 8472, which I would want to get, but I think those are going to follow way down the road. So this line, and by that I mean Voyager specifically, has been sort of a mixed bag, and even I have to admit, the sculpt work, paint apps, and likeness ranges from downright poor to pretty solid, with some just in the middle. So having all these together begs the question, does the crew look better in the aggregate as opposed to standalone pieces? And I think the answer is a resounding yes. Seeing all these figures together immediately lets you identify who everyone is, and there is something that just stands out having the similar uniforms all standing there. And I think that's something that's really going to unite each of the different crews. So unfortunately, my favorite characters from the show didn't necessarily translate to the best figures. I personally love Janeway, Chakotay, and Seven, so let's start with the immediate reaction. Janeway is easily my biggest disappointment on the line. Again, with everyone around her, she looks great, but the sculpt, and it's not really the sculpt, it's more the paint app on it, just lets the figure down. And I'll talk modifications later, maybe, but this is just looking at the pieces direct from EXO-6, and I don't think there's any denying that it just lacks the detail some of their other releases have had. And when it comes to the female characters in particular, looking at Janeway, Seven, and B'Elanna, the hair is something I hope EXO-6 can learn to detail a little bit better. If you look at both Janeway and B'Elanna, the hair is just this plastic component dropped on top of the sculpt, and it does look a little jarring at times. Now, for Chakotay, I actually like how he turned out. Paintwork is awesome, and the face tattoo really looks great, so this is one of my favorite figures in the line. It's not a perfect likeness by any means, but pretty solid, and while he was underused in the show and sometimes abused a little too much by Janeway, I'm happy he was one of the highlights of the EXO-6 figures for me. And then 7 of 9. Again, likeness isn't completely there, but I do think that also has to do with the paint apps. The eyes are the biggest thing that kind of take you out of that realism. I know not everyone was happy with this figure, but the body has some weight to it, and it really feels like an overall impressive release. And surprisingly, for a figure with heels, she stands well without needing to stand, and that's a big thing for me since I typically don't like using stands unless I absolutely have to. So a few things that easily come to mind when you see them all standing together. I think I do slightly regret not picking up the Doctor. This might seem strange, but just from a visual point of view, it would have been nice to have the blue-green jumpsuit to split things up a little bit, since they're basically just a sea of yellow and red. Seven does a good job of breaking things up, so that's something that I'll have to keep in mind for the rest of the crew. And the other things that become obvious to me for this line, the entire set stands out in a way that each individual figure can't really do. I think Seven is probably the one piece that stands out most well as an independent figure, but as a crew they really do have a visual flair to them. And look, I didn't go crazy with the poses, but I did aim for a standing, almost poster shot, than a more tactical version of the crew, which is funny. Someone I saw did ask, for Trek usually the crews were all about exploration, so why are we so inclined to have these posed with the weapons outstretched? For me, when it comes to Voyager, they were on high alert, being so far from home, so I do imagine that translated to having to be ready to fight more often than not. One thing I'm seeing EXO-6 do with other lines is to include a captain's chair, and I do think from a display perspective that would result in a significant pop, but I don't think that Voyager captain's chair was that distinctive or lent itself to 6 scale. I will be honest with you, these figures stand out for me because I love the IP, and Voyager was a personal favorite, so I am really happy to have that crew in hand. But if you're not a fan, these are not in the top caliber level of figures, just to be honest. So I do think they're going to appeal specifically to that fan base. It's not meant to be a knock on the line, but just a statement of facts, I think, or at least what I see as the reality of the line. For me, they look awesome together, and I could definitely overlook some of the issues, but having Hot Toys figures and other company figures that just have an amazing visual pop or massive diorama base and presence, I have to be honest and say these aren't on that level. But I don't think they're meant to be. So again, for me, I'm very happy with this command crew, and I'm looking forward to picking some of the other crews and putting them together. Let me know your thoughts, and as always, this is just a quick look at the full line assembled. And thanks for watching, and if you are enjoying the content, please consider dropping a like, comment, or subscribing, and we'll touch base on the next video.